Hi, my name is Emily Turpak, and I am a real estate agent in the greater Philadelphia area. This means that I cover all of Philadelphia County and the surrounding suburbs in Pennsylvania and South Jersey. In this video, we're going to be talking about all of the different types of properties you can find in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is actually very unique in how many different style homes there really are. There are actually six, and we're going to break down every single one. Not only that, but I'm also going to tell you where you can find each of those types of properties. Because if you're looking for a loft style condo, you're not going to find that in Point Breeze or West Philly. Or if you're looking for a single family detached home, you're not going to find that in Fishtown. You're simply not. So I want to make sure that you know, especially if you're looking for a very specific type of property, where you can ultimately find that in what neighborhood. Because the real question is, do you care more about the neighborhood that you specifically live in, or do you care more about the style of property and you're flexible on the neighborhood? That's a really big question to ask yourself before you start looking in Philadelphia. Because if you're looking in a very specific neighborhood in Philadelphia, you're just going to be kind of narrowed down in the sense of what properties you're going to have access to in that particular neighborhood. The first property is going to be the most common in Philadelphia, and that is a traditional row home. Now, some of the other properties that we're going to get into later, you're going to find that you're not going to see them in every single neighborhood. But I can guarantee you, if you are interested in a row home, you can live in any neighborhood in Philadelphia. You can find it absolutely everywhere. Every single neighborhood has them. So a traditional row home is going to be brick. Sometimes you will see stucco on the front. If it's stucco over brick. Unless you buy new construction, which might have like a metal facade of some sort or something funky or different. Traditionally, they are brick, and they're also going to be either 2 stories or 3 stories. Traditional is two, three is a little bit more unique. Certain neighborhoods and blocks will lend themselves to a 3 story row home. It kind of depends. Now, let's say you are in a 2 story row home, but you're on a corner row home. You can actually go up to a third story. That's allowed in Philadelphia. Now, that's going to be super expensive, but you can technically do it. And if you're an interior row home, but you're next to a 3 story row home, then you can go to a 3 story row home. So that's kind of a trick in Philly there. Now, a corner row home is going to be slightly more expensive than like an interior row home where you have truly a neighbor on both sides. Just because a corner property, you have one less neighbor, you're going to have more natural light, things like that. Now, one thing I like to clear up about row homes is that 99% of them are not part of an HOA. And I know it's a little deceiving because from the outside, they look like they touch, but your side of your house and your neighbor's side of their house, they just touch, but they're not the same wall. Meaning, if your neighbor decided, you know what, I'm actually going to tear my house down and build new construction up, your house would still be standing. Your brick wall would still be intact. So you're not actually really joined with your neighbor in that sense. There's also a very specific row home called a Trinity row home, if you'd like to Google it. So a Trinity row home typically has these wooden spiral stairs that go up the center. The reason why they were built like that is because the depth of the home is a little short. So you can't get a full set of stairs going up in a traditional way. They have to be more spiral and very vertical. Okay. Now you're going to find these in places like Fittler Square, Rittenhouse, Queen Village, parts of Bella Vista, Society Hill, places like that. Places that are a little bit more densely populated, and the streets are, not as deep and more narrow. The next type of property is a twin home, also known as a semi-detached home. This means that you just have one wall with another neighbor. Now, I say that kind of loosely because, again, it's not part of an HOA and your wall is separate from your neighbor's wall. So, if for some reason they wanted to take their side of the twin down, yours would still be erect. Okay. Sometimes you actually see that in Philadelphia. Like you can see that there probably used to be a whole structure there, but someone just truly just cut right down the middle and one twin is standing and one's not there anymore. So you can usually find these in West Philly, Mount Airy, Manayunk, Roxborough, and Northeast Philly. Those are probably the most common. You might occasionally see one maybe in, actually, East Falls has a few as well. You'll see them scattered occasionally throughout the city, but I would say those are definitely where the majority of them reside. Now, one thing I want to note about twin homes, although it's not part of an HOA and you are separate from your neighbor, sometimes I will see it where the front stairs, like your front stairs leading up to the house, are the same as your neighbors. They were built at the same time. They're one block. So the step literally carries over from your neighbor's house straight through to your house. So if the stairs start to crumble, let's say in the middle, you might have to coordinate with your neighbor and say, hey, do you want to replace that this fall or next year? Let's talk about it. But in general, everything's pretty separate. Okay, a single family detached home. You would think this would be just reserved for the suburbs, but surprisingly, you can find these in Philadelphia. Now, I will say you're going to find them on the outskirts of the city, the areas of the city that essentially hug the suburbs. Okay. You're really not going to find a single family detached home in, say, I don't know, Bella Vista or Graduate Hospital. There might be one or two that I can't even think of, but overall, you're not going to find these in more of like the central of the city. You're going to find it in places like Roxborough, Manayunk, Mount Airy, Chestnut Hill, the Northeast, East Falls, places like that. Again, if you look on a map, you'll see those are kind of pushing further out from the city. And I would say about 50% of these single family detached homes have driveways. And the reason why I actually say 50% is because sometimes a row home is a single family detached home only because it just happens to have no neighbors on the side. Most likely it's because that area is still developing and maybe those haven't been constructed yet. So that's why I say that. But if it's a true single family detached home, it will never have any neighbors. Those do typically come with a driveway. The next property are new construction row homes. Now, these are going to really vary in size and amenities. Okay. You can have like a normal, maybe 1,800 square foot new construction row home, no parking, or you can have a massive 3,500 square foot, new construction row home with two-car parking. It'll be 5 floors high, roof deck, massive, in the millions. They can be either or. They do tend to be on the more modern side. So that's where you're going to see some metal facades, and sometimes these builders try to make them like a little different. So you're definitely they will stand out compared to the traditional brick row homes. Let's just say that. Now, for as big as these new construction row homes can be, they actually tend to have pretty small backyards. And there's sort of a reason for it. That's just simply because the city of Philadelphia it just has like a minimum for what the outdoor space needs to be, and builders just want to hit that minimum and move on. And it's because they get more money for the building structure itself. The more square footage the house is, the more they can sell it for. It's kind of as simple as that. But as I said, many of them do have a really large roof deck, so you do kind of get that outdoor space but in a different way. The next thing is some are going to be part of an HOA, whether they're part of a development or sometimes they'll have like a shared parking in the middle of a development, or there's just going to be a shared center driveway in the rear of the homes. You're going to find new construction row homes, probably throughout the city, but I would say a majority of them are going to be found in places like Fishtown, Point Breeze, Francisville, Brewerytown, and Manayunk. An advantage to buying a new or newer construction property is that it might come with a 10-year tax abatement. Now, there are two different types of tax abatements. It depends on when the property was built. The first one is a full 10-year tax abatement. The next one is a graduated 10-year tax abatement. For the graduated 10-year tax abatement, your first year is 100% abated, and then the next year it's 90, then 80, then 70, and so on. And one of the reasons is the city wanted to bring more money back into the schools. So that's really why they did it. And the abatement doesn't stop just because a home has been sold. So, for instance, let's say a property was built in 2022 and we're in 2026 right now. That means that there have already been 4 years on the tax abatement and there are 6 years left. So, if the seller sells this year, the next buyer will have 6 years left of that tax abatement. The next type of property is going to be a condo or a loft. So, this is going to essentially look like an apartment but you own it. Okay. Now, condos can be found in multiple different structures. Okay. The first one is a high rise building. So, if you're looking for a building with amenities, think a door person, gym, swimming pool, things like that. You're going to find those in places like Center City, Old City, Washington Square West, Rittenhouse, places like that. And if you want a condo, but you don't necessarily need the amenities, so to speak, then you're going to find those in places such as Old City, Fishtown, Old Kensington, Northern Liberties. That kind of area has a ton. Oftentimes, they're actually converted warehouses, which is really cool. I've seen ones like the candy factory, the cigar factory, the hat factory. It's really, really neat. And oftentimes, you'll see that they still have, you know, the old industrial equipment there. So you'll see this like big metal wheel that used to be a freight elevator. Like that might be in one of the units. There's going to be exposed brick, super tall ceilings and windows, steel beams that run across the top. It has a ton of character, some of these buildings. Or you'll actually even see on the brick wall, sometimes it still has the paint that says the company's name across it. And it's kind of all vintage now because it's 100 years old. Super, super neat, really fun buildings to check out. Finally, the last type of property is going to be multi-family property. So, this is going to be a building with multiple units inside. Typically, you're going to want this as an investment. Maybe you live in one unit and you rent out the other units, or you just buy the building to completely rent out. Okay. Now, this can be a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex. So, that's 2 units, 3 units, or 4 units. Now, these are going to be scattered throughout the city, but I would say a majority are in West Philly, North Philly, and South Philly. The big thing here is going to be zoning. So there are a lot of illegal multifamily properties in Philly. Now, they've been illegally operating as a multifamily for probably 50 years, but I did just want to shed light on that. That just because it is set up as a multifamily currently does not mean that it's technically legal with the city. Of course, you can try to get the zoning changed, but I will be honest with you, certain neighborhoods are going to make that nearly impossible. One of the first ones I can think of is Fishtown. And that's just because parking is already so hard in that neighborhood that they're not going to approve one unit being converted into 3 units because that means more cars and less parking for themselves. But even in my neighborhood in South Philly, there was a vacant lot that was trying to get zoned as a multifamily when they rebuilt it. I have never seen so many clipboards in a 3-month period. I mean, they were just trying to get neighbors to sign this petition to not have the multifamily get passed, and it didn't. This neighbor made it her life's mission to make sure that that lot did not become a multifamily. Now, in my area in South Philly, that was because the view of renters is renters equal riffraff. I just lived in a very traditional area in South Philly, and that was just the mentality. And it shouldn't be like that, but it wasn't about parking for my neighborhood. So every neighborhood's going to be different in how they view these multifamilies and if they're going to get passed or not. And those are all of the different properties in Philadelphia and where you can find them. So you can reach out to me if you are looking for a very specific property and you want to know where you can locate it in Philadelphia, or if you're actually just focused on a very specific neighborhood and you want to know what types of properties there are in that specific area.